All right, welcome in. Brian Edwards, MajorWager.com, here to preview UFC 36 in hot Atlanta, Georgia, this Saturday night, April 13th. We're gonna break down the main card for you right now, headlined by a great matchup and actually a rematch between Max Blessed Holloway and Dustin the Diamond Poirier from Lafayette, Louisiana. Holloway is moving up to the lightweight division. He's the current featherweight kingpin at 145 pounds. He's moving up to face Poirier for the interim lightweight title at 155 pounds. Obviously, Khabib Nurmagomedov is the champion, but he is currently suspended and is not going to be able to fight until the fall. So, interim title shot for Holloway against Poirier. And again, this is actually a rematch, but I want to be clear to gamblers that you don't need to go to Fight Pass and watch the first fight because it has absolutely no bearing on this fight. First of all, it was fought at 145 pounds in the featherweight loop. It was actually Holloway's UFC debut when he was only 21 years old, and Poirier won at the 323 mark of round one with a mounted triangle choke. Poirier was only 24 at the time. He's now 30. That was at UFC 143. So, I mean, you're going back, 93 pay-per-view events? That's how long ago it was. Poirier, 8-1-1 in the lightweight division since being knocked out by Conor McGregor at UFC 178 in a featherweight bout. He's gone up and he's won 8 of 10 fights. The one no contest being when Eddie Alvarez caught him with an illegal knee. Poirier, 5'9", 72-inch reach. Holloway is 5'11", but he's only got a 69-inch reach. So a 2-inch height advantage for Blessed Holloway and a 3-inch reach advantage for Dustin Poirier. Holloway is 13 fight winning streak. He has not tasted defeat since August 17th of 2013 when he went the distance with the notorious Conor McGregor, but lost a unanimous decision. So, and by the way, the first scrap between these two was way back on February 4th, 2001. And again, like I said, UFC 143. So currently, the odds, they've been reduced a little bit. Holloway is still heavily favored. I see the most inexpensive cost on Holloway is currently minus 205 at betonline.ag. Holloway was a little bit more favored, when the odds came out a month or so ago. Right now, I see the best underdog price on Poirier looks like plus 191, at Sport Bet. He's plus 185 at 5 Dimes, plus 175 at Bovada and William Hill. Sportsbook.ag and Bet365 have him at plus 180. Looking at the total, looks like they don't have a total out yet. They do have a prop that the fight doesn't go to decision is minus 245. The fight goes to decision is plus 185. Right now, and I did get a very small taste at Poirier, but I got him at plus 220 a few weeks back, just because I was pretty confident the odds would go down. I obviously like to watch a lot of fight week shenanigans, if you will. I like to see, make sure nobody's limping. B, just watch the mental warfare between the fighters. They have where they square them off for the stare downs either on Wednesday or Thursday. They have a lot of media scrums. Obviously, the weigh-in and both guys cut. I mean, obviously Holloway's cutting less weight, but remember now, his one attempt to move up to lightweight was when Tony Ferguson got hurt at the media event 1 week before he was going to take on Habib Nurmagomedov at UFC 223 at Barclays Arena in Brooklyn, New York. And so Ferguson tore his knee up with that injury when he his freak injury, tripped over a tarp or something. It was something weird. But anyway, Holloway stepped in on 1 week notice, but he was unable to make the weight. The UFC doctors made him quit the weight cut, and he was unable to fight. But that was only on a week notice. He's obviously had an entire training camp here. Excuse me. And as I said, 13-fight winning streak for Holloway. But I'm leaning toward Dustin, and I'll have more on that, whether it's writing on Major Wager or another video later this week, kind of breaking down what I'm seeing in terms of fight week and what goes on. Because obviously, when the weight cut's early Friday morning, you can tell if the guys had a tough weight cut, or maybe they don't cut weight. The odds can change, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll have more on that. But right now, if I had to pick it, I'd go with Dustin Poirier at around plus 180. Again, I got it at plus 220. Okay, moving on to the co-main event. Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya, facing Kelvin Gastelum for another interim belt, this time in the middleweight division, as the champion Robert Whittaker had to pull out of his fight against Gastelum a couple of months ago. He had a hernia, had to have emergency surgery, and they expect him to be ready to go late summer or in the fall. So the winner of this will face Whittaker to unify the 185-pound belt. Right now, looking at the live odds, Adesanya minus 170 at most books. I see the Greek has him minus 160, as does Bet Online AG, and .ag, excuse me, and that looks to be the most inexpensive price currently on the 6'4" Adesanya out of New Zealand with a unbeaten, an unbeaten 15-0 record, and 5-0 in the UFC. He did all that in 364 days, and he's already got a title shot. And he beat Anderson Silva in the what turned out to be the main event over in Australia a couple of months ago after Whittaker had to pull out. He beat Anderson Silva. It was a 3-round main event because the guys had not trained for a 5-round fight. Obviously, both of these title fights are 5 rounds. Keep that in mind. Again, sorry, we don't have any over-unders yet, as I'm a big over-under player when it comes to the UFC. Or I'll occasionally dabble in a little Bellator, but I usually just say UFC instead of MMA because I don't bet much outside of the UFC. Anyhow, Gastelum, he was the Ultimate Fighter winner when he beat Uriah Hall several years ago. Gastelum is 27 years old. He's 5'9" with a 71.5-inch reach. So Adesanya's he's 6'4". Okay, so he's got a considerable height advantage and has one of the biggest reach advantages I've ever seen in breaking down a matchup. He's got an 80-inch reach. So 8.5-inch reach advantage over Gastelum. Now, John Jones often has a considerable reach advantage of usually 5 to 6, maybe 7 inches. But 8.5 is a enormous reach advantage. Adesanya, during his 5-0 run in the UFC, 3 performance of the night bonuses, 1 fight of the night, really only was challenged by Marvin Vettori out of Italy in a split decision. And Vettori, I don't want to say he's a wrestler. Actually he's from Italy. I'm not sure where he went to college and what have you, but he's probably the best wrestler Adesanya has faced, and that's key here. Kelvin Gastelum is an outstanding wrestler and comes from a wrestling background, and he'll have the advantage there. But now, look, Gastelum's got heavy hands too. He knocked out Michael Bisping, has several other significant knockouts. In his last loss to Chris Weidman, he nearly knocked Weidman out when he dropped him with about 10 or 15 seconds left in the round and was giving him ground and pound when the bell saved him pretty much at the end of round one, and Weidman went on to earn a submission win in the third round. Another advantage I'll give Gastelum is certainly experience. Again, Adesanya is 16-0, 5-0 in the UFC, but Gastelum, man, you know, this will be his 15th career walk to the octagon. He's actually faced 5 former champions already. He's 2-2-1 in those fights, really 3-2. He knocked out Vitor Belfort, and it got changed to a no contest because he popped dirty for weed, as if that's a performance enhancer. Get out of here. 3 of his losses, 2 of them were split decisions. The other one, the aforementioned L to the All-American Chris Weidman. The split decision losses came to Tyron Woodley, former welterweight champ. Obviously, Gastelum used to compete at welterweight, by the way, but he's been up at middleweight for a while now. He also lost a split decision to Neil Magny. So I give Gastelum the experience advantage. I give him the wrestling advantage. And again, Adesanya struggled with Marvin Vettori because of Marvin's wrestling. And Adesanya's got to deal with Kelvin's wrestling. And we'll see. This is the best wrestler he's faced by a long shot. This is the most pressure-packed fight of Adesanya's career. And I don't really have a lean to give out. I really don't. I want to see how the odds move this week, if they move. I certainly want to see an over-under, as both guys have finishing potential. And again, minus 170-ish at most spots for Israel, the last style bender, Adesanya. Again, we'll have a video later in the week when I have more of my, fight week handicapping done, as I previously mentioned. All right, real quick on the 3 other main card fights. Ya boy, Eric Anders, former Alabama linebacker, had that huge game against Texas in the BCS championship game, but has moved over to the MMA world for the last few years, has had some really good fights already in the octagon. He sent Rafael Natal into retirement with a brutal first-round knockout in his UFC debut. Then he beat Marcus Perez by unanimous decision. He lost a split decision to Lyoto the Dragon Machida, former light heavyweight champion, in February 3rd of 2018. I actually scored that fight for Anders. I had it 3-2 his way, and I should note that was in Brazil. So, sometimes tough to get a decision down in Brazil. Can't believe I didn't turn the reader on my phone off. Sorry, folks. Anyway, he had a head kick win over Tim Williams in August of 2018, bagged a performance of the night bonus. Then he took the Thiago Santos fight, and let me let you know that Thiago Santos is now going to fight John Jones for the light heavyweight title. So certainly no shame in this defeat. He took this fight on like 8 days' notice, had to fly to Brazil, he was moving up a division from middleweight, where he fights up to light heavyweight, up to 205, which is the only reason he can make weight on such a short notice. He was walking back to his corner at the end of round 3, and he literally collapsed of fatigue. Remember, 8 days' notice. He wasn't in shape to go a 5-round fight. Excuse me. And since then, he lost another split decision to Elias Theodoro. And again, it was a fight that I scored in favor of Anders. So in my mind, Anders is 4-1 in the UFC, and his only loss is to a guy 1 division up and a guy who's undefeated at light heavyweight and is about to fight John Jones for the title. So in other words, there's no shame in any of the L's on his current resume during his UFC tenure that shows a 3-3 record. But again, in my mind, he's 5-1 because I thought he beat Elias Theodoro. Theodoro was running from him the whole fight. That's not even to be discussed, really, in my mind. So anyhow, Anders is facing Khalil Roundtree. Both of these guys have big-time power, so I would love to see the over-under. I think Anders is going to win this fight, but if you're not familiar with my betting strategy, I don't bet baseball anymore, but obviously you bet baseball similar to UFC. It's just odds on who wins. And back when I bet baseball, I had a rule. I didn't bet anything north of minus 150, so minus 200. Actually, he's minus 190 at some books. But that's too expensive for me. I don't now in UFC, unlike when I was baseball, I'll occasionally take a minus 160, minus 165 favorite if I love it, but I keep it at a small amount. I like Anders in this fight against Roundtree, but I would probably like if we could get an under 1.5 rounds at plus money. I'm not implying we're going to be able to get that, but if we can, and we'll have a total later in the week, I would be bullish on that. So, but now if you do parlays in the UFC, I would suggest, you can put your boy Eric Anders, former Alabama football player, in any parlays you might do for UFC 236. Okay, wrapping up. Last two fights: Alan Juban against Dwight Grant. That is a pick'em fight, minus 110 or minus 115. Either way, I've got to do some homework on Grant. I haven't seen him fight. Unless I'm just not remembering, and I got to get a picture of his face. But anyway, I've seen Juban fight live, actually, out in Vegas a couple summers ago. So that's a pick'em, and I got no feel for it. Obviously, like I said, I haven't seen Grant fight yet. Nikita Krylov against Ovince St. Preux, former Tennessee football player that most in the UFC world call OSP, famous for the Von Fluke chokes that we now call OSP chokes. And he's also got heavy hands, plenty of power, facing Nikita Krylov out of the Ukraine. Krylov, 6'3", 77.5-inch reach, a career record of 24-6, but he's coming off a loss to Jan Blachowicz in Moscow last September. This is his second run in the UFC. Previously, he had gone, actually, it's a rematch. He lost to OSP by Von Fluke choke back on March 15th of 2014 at UFC 171. His first run in the UFC, he went 6-3. But after being submitted by Misha Serkinov on December 10th of 2016, he got cut. I remember it puzzled me at the time. But he's back in the UFC, off to a bad start with the loss, but will be in bounce-back mode here against Ovince St. Preux, the former Vol. And again, we've got another pick'em fight here. I lean OSP if you had to bet it right now. But that I have not bet it. That could change later in the week. So wrapping up, UFC 236. I'm Brian Edwards, MajorWager.com. I lean Dustin Poirier as a plus 180-ish underdog against Max Blessed Holloway. Really no opinion on Adesanya Gastelum. I suggest Anders if you do UFC parlays around minus 190 or minus 200. Might be looking at an under. If we can get it about even money on an under later in the week, no odds yet for totals. No opinion, Juban Grant. And I lean OSP against Krylov. And again, I'm Brian Edwards from MajorWager.com. Thank you for joining us.